Hej, mina Njål här, Jackson. Och, well, many people say that the Heman show was kind of badly animated. It was weirdly written and janky and all of that, right? And sure it is, but you know what it also is? Quite impressive for what it is. I mean, okay, so the animation, for example, might be see like this walk animation here, right? It is clearly rotoscoped from an actor. But the thing is, it's very hard to keep it good, and even harder to keep it consistent, right? And animation is extremely expensive and time-consuming, and getting more than one and making a 20-minute episode. Now that is impressive on its own when you consider all the rules, the budgets they have to deal with, the rules, the budget, the fact that they had to come up with a plot for each episode. You know what the reason why most of these episodes are just full of random bullcrap? Well, because they more or less just made them up on the spot, and somehow it all worked out. So yeah. So yeah, essentially it's just a lot of random stuff. So yeah, I've been animating a little bit for a while, right? I'm trying to make some animation, and first of all, you need to plan it all out, right? Then you need to also need to design all the elements in the scene, right? And after you have designed all the characters and elements, you also need to design the backdrop for the scenery. So, for example, in the background of this scene, you can see a matte painting where it's essentially just made with watercolor and some ink. And that in itself, even if it's a simple background, it takes a lot of time. Because you have to draw it, paint it, plan it, design it. And then comes the character of the sorceress, which is based around a falcon. It's kind of cool, really. But the thing is, that also requires a lot of planning and pacing. Which is really the biggest issue they deal with, is pacing. Because the show, sure, problem, it was meant to sell toys and all of that. But all the stories are like played out like children sitting in a playground, just making the story up as they go. Nothing really changes, no consequences are everlasting, and there's always some sort of moral. And that is still an impressive feat, because you think Transformers were much any better? Hell, even the original Gundam show was about this level of animation quality when it came to the amount of frames and a bit of a janky transitions. Because what you have to remember is, even if you have actors to trace the movement on, you have to draw every single frame by hand onto a transparent sheet of paper, or rather on a cell, and then you have to color it. Oh, and if you make mistakes, right? Well, then you're gonna have an even more fun part, because it's very hard to correct mistakes. Also, when you make a 20-minute episode, it's very easy to put in a lot of stupid animation mistakes. Hell, it's even very simple to do that on a comic page. And yes, I heard some people complain about, oh, the anatomy is not real enough and where are so organs. And to that I can say, well, it's not really that complicated to do. Because since this is based on a realistic woman, the only thing that's unrealistic is that the waist is a little bit on the thin side. So if you just widen it a little bit, it would be perfectly acceptable, a perfectly normal generic woman. But the people who complains about stuff like that usually imagine more like with a lot of extra body mass for no apparent reason. But yeah. So one of the reasons why all of these characters have pretty much the same body is that they had a limit amount of since all of the human characters are based on referenced on real people acting. You have to. They had a limited pool of actors available, so they pretty much use one or two person for every character in the whole show, and you just swap out the clothes. It saves on the budget, because it takes time to animate, and the longer you spend time on it, the more expensive it becomes, and the more irritated the studio will become, because they want to make money, they want to publish the product, and so you have to do what you can. Compare this also. Some of the transitions between scenes are really janky, mostly because I probably had no idea what they were actually going to do in the scene. Yes, most of the animation is various combination of loops and people and talking faces, because that is the cheap way to do it. See, talking faces from different angles. and if you can look at this, right, then his legs just goes inside the case here. I don't know what's going on, but it's a weird horse, but kind of cool. So anyways, back to my point. First, you write a script. Alright, if you're going to go completely from scratch, first you make the settings, then you design the characters, then you write a script, then you start sketching out the storyboard, then you start planning out the backgrounds and the scenery, then you start figuring out the sequence of movements and the camera angles and what you can actually pull off. Oh, and after that, you have to start, drawing the actual people in proper proportions and in having them look natural. And of course, you also need to make the scenery fit the characters. And as you can see, a common thing here is that the people has absolutely no shadows, because that's expensive and time consuming and annoying to do. But interestingly enough, you can see there's a lot of talent in this, gone into making this. As if you see this plain ruin here, right? The light comes in from the left side, and you can see here you have highlights, the low lights, and the shade. So you can see how the light just reflects off this angle of this ledge, and then this lights up, and then the staircase becomes dark. So yeah, you can see it's clearly that some decent artist and proportion went into this, into drawing everything. Sure, I'm jumping by 5 seconds, but still. Boink, boink. Boink, boink, boink. Boink. No, the only thing with tracing in this sort of style, right, is you can see how simplistic and boring the facial expressions tends to be. But yeah. But you can say what you want about the theme about her portrayal of the women in the show, but the men are not any better, and they're just as exposed and sexualized. See here again, you have light and shadow coming. And since you have to hand draw all of this stuff, right? Look at all these people. Does that look like normal men to you? No, no. Now they suddenly look. Oh, look, here's a bit of a scrawny one, but. So yeah. So essentially, to plan this all out, it takes a lot of time. And time is not on an animator's side when you're working for television. So that is my point. Sure, the animation is janky. Sure, the plot is nonsensical. The characters all looks like they came from the same model. And it's meant to sell toys. But it still takes a damn lot of impressive effort to pull this all off. And not everyone can do that. So you got to admire the quality and consistency. Oh, and in that regard, I really like the texture quality of this surface. It looks really, really nice. That you can see here as well, I have very interesting brush strokes. I need to see if I can see if I can get a bit of can be a bit inspired by the brush stroke. Yes. So yeah. The animation quality is based on experience, budget, and source and resources available. So yeah, that's all. I'm rambling. Have a good one, and the show of Heman is much better than you would expect, and you can find all the He-Man and She-Ra episodes legally on Netflix, on YouTube, on the official He-Man channel thingy. So see you around and stay awesome, and I have links to my social media stuff down below. I'm your host Njol, #Sasson, signing out.